Welcome to the Leader's Mindset. We're back with another live episode, bringing you enlightening conversations with leaders who are making an impact in business and our communities. Great thing about doing this live is we get to interact with you. So if you've got questions for our guest, please put them in the chat. So today we have a workforce champion and the founder of Workbnb, a Techstars venture-backed B2B software as a service travel platform on a mission to accelerate the proliferation of workforce rental homes and improve the lives of millions traveling for work in the United States. Please welcome Yeves Perez. Thanks for being here today, Yeves.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So I said a bunch of words, but for our audience, what does all that mean? What is Workbnb doing, and what is the problem you're solving for our workforce today?
Yeah, we're solving a really big problem that we are really trying to get a lot of people on board to help us solve. We like to call it a movement more than just a product, because blue collar workers make up the fabric of American society. And when their employers cannot find safe and decent housing for these workers that have to travel for work, the alternative is living in hotels and motels for months. And you don't get a sense of feeling valued with experiences like this. And we founded Workbnb to build the best workforce travel experience in the world.
So tell me a little bit about, what does one of your workers who's going through the Workbnb experience, what is that experience like for them? Because I know I did a lot of travel when I was in the Air Force, and I stayed in a lot of hotels for a long time. I also stayed in a lot worse places than hotels. But what's the experience? How is the experience different for those employees? How does it make it better? How does it make their lives better for them?
Well, before I get into that answer, first of all, on behalf of Workbnb and all of our believers and supporters, we want to thank you for your service as an airman, 20 years. Thank you for your service and your commitment. And I also want to, say thank you to all service members, because I have family members that have served previously, and I have a brother-in-law who right now is in Seoul, South Korea. So again, I just wanted to get that out of the way and say thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you for your support of me and all of us. I'll speak on behalf of all service members. Thank you for your support, and best wishes and your brothers in our hearts over in South Korea.
Yes, thank you. Again, I was born and raised in Sacramento, and even my Aunt Rosemary served in administration at McClellan Air Force Base. So we have a special place in our hearts.
Wow.
But to answer that question, I got to tell you, there is a lack of consistency. That's the issue. You can go as a traveling worker, you can go to one market and have an okay experience or a decent experience, but then you go to another market and, again, you're getting the bottom of the barrel. And what's very challenging for those that have to travel for work is sometimes these hotels and motels are C-class properties. They haven't been updated in decades. And they have a reputation of either, poor amenities. Bed bugs has been a frequent issue in the hospitality space. And then also some of these communities or properties are in transient neighborhoods, or they have transient folks that stay in them. So if you're traveling with $80,000 worth of tools in your truck, you're worried about tool theft. And these are a multitude of problems that go on in this travel space. And we categorize it as workforce travel. There's white collar business travel, there's leisure travel, but the workforce space is completely underserved. And we spent 2.5 years, what we call an alpha test, where we were gathering information, understanding these travel patterns. And, imagine being someone who is a journeyman lineman, for example, and you're traveling, 3 to 25 times per year just to do your job. And you have to work in blizzard conditions. You have to work in high heat conditions to restore power after a storm, or maybe it's an expansion of a new community. And again, you're staying in a area that is just not decent or safe. And that's the heart of the issue. But from a B2B perspective, this is where this gets different. Most of the time, what we're finding is that the employer is choosing where the end user is staying. And that means that person doesn't have a choice. And when there's no choice, it comes back as these feelings of, do I belong? Does this company value me? I have this title, essential worker, but I don't feel essential. And it's those feelings, those emotions that cause high suicide rates. In fact, the construction industry has the highest rate in suicide in the United States than any other job in the United States. It's 4 times higher than the national average. And out of every 100,000 construction workers, 53 take their lives every year due to the stress of traveling and doing their jobs. We're trying to solve that problem.
Well, I knew kind of the nuts and bolts of the problems you're trying to solve. I didn't know those statistics about construction workers, which is very disturbing to me. So that is eye-opening what that statistic is and how that continues. We believe really strongly here in my company that we want to make sure that workers feel appreciated, because that keeps workers working for us. But you've opened up a whole new reason employers really need to think about and steps they can take to secure the lives, safety, and well-being of their employees. And that's an amazing way of looking at this problem. And how did you come across this problem? What were you doing before you were doing Workbnb, and how did this come to you?
Oh, excellent question. So I was in marketing and advertising before I got into this, branding. I was part of the Chevy Volt launch in Southern California. I got to work with Chevrolet. I got to work with Solar City on their marketing. So when you learn a lot about marketing, you learn a lot about asking questions. And that is something that tech founders really kind of lack. They usually kind of build products based on their own experiences, and then they hope that they scale. And they hope that they find people. And I don't like to put my future into just this hope category. I want to do my research. So in this particular case, in 2017, my mom happened to get carpal tunnel surgery, double carpal tunnel surgery, and she received a payout, like a settlement, and she took that money and she got into the Airbnb business, like a lot of people. Airbnb from 2012 to 2017 was like the golden age of Airbnb, and everybody wanted this passive income. But what she quickly found out was that, yeah, you can set up rentals, but there's something that they don't teach you in that particular business, which is understanding your ideal customer profile. And in that particular technology, the ideal customer profile is typically a vacation traveler. That's who you focus on. So when you're in a marketplace like that and it starts to become oversaturated, your bookings start to decline. You're looking for new clients to serve. And that was what happened with me. My mom received a request from a construction firm. I'm sorry, not a construction firm. That's a little bit later, but a tech firm that was relocating to Reno, Nevada. And they had their employees in her rental. She didn't know what was going on because she wasn't really paying attention. But they loved her rental so much that they asked the CEO to have a meeting with her. And that's where my story began, because that company gave my mom a contract to open up 23 apartments in 3 weeks because of the lack of workforce housing. And that's what turned on the machine. She called me the very next day after she got the contract, and she said, "Yeves, I bought you a plane ticket. You need to be out here tomorrow and
Yes,
help
Mama.
me set up." And exactly, I said, "Yes, okay, I'll do it. Especially if I ever want to get invited to Thanksgiving ever again, I better get on this plane." So I went up there. But as we're doing the work and fulfilling the contract, she asked me the marketing question. She said, how can I get more clients like this? And I said, well, let's really kind of understand this space first. Let's go back and look at your previous bookings, and let's create buckets because there are different trip lengths. And for those that are staying longer, let's analyze who those people are and why are they traveling. And once we did that, we found out that she was getting workforce related bookings pretty consistently because of where her rentals were. And at the time, Tesla was building this huge manufacturing facility. There were all kinds of workers coming to Reno, and they wanted proximity as their number one reason to book. So we analyzed all that data, but the main thing that we also looked at, and this again, this is my specialty, marketing, branding, advertising, we had to change the vernacular. She was using everything vacation rental, close to downtown, this and that. And I'm like, okay, that works for tourists, but we actually have to change the language here for your customer profile. And that's where we coined the term workforce rentals. And that's how we got started.
Fantastic. I think you just offered us a master class in starting any kind of business venture, startup or otherwise. You went and you found a problem that was a blue ocean that nobody else was solving. You did your market research. You identified your target customers and worked around them. I mean, better than my MBA at UNLV. No, that's
shout
a
out
really
to UNLV though.
Shout out to UNLV. I love to do it my MBA there. But yeah, that's really a really concise way of putting these are the kinds of things you want to do if you're starting any kind of venture is see if you can find that blue ocean, identify the target customers, do the market research. You've got to do the hard work, right?
Yeah,
so
and I mean, really, it's picking up the phone. It's not guessing. It's not any of that. You have to pick up the phone. You have to call people. You have to ask them a series of questions, because really the 7 most expensive words in business is we have always done it this way. Those are the most expensive in all of business. Okay. So there is a better way, but you have to frame it in those customer profiles, those ideal customer profiles. And once we really kind of dialed that in, we also asked the priority question. The priority question sounds like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, if I could solve X problem for you, how likely are you to use this service? If they score a 5 or above, that means as soon as you build it, they will consume it. And that's how you distribute a product.
That couldn't be said any better. And one of the things I'm thinking of as you're talking about solving this for employers, solving this for workers, the way you've approached this for workforce rentals also helps communities too. I know you're familiar with how nervous and uncomfortable people in Las Vegas are with short-term tourist rentals. Right. And what you're offering is a solution for the community to allow people to tap into this part of the economy with less risk.
Right. And thank you for bringing that up, because yes, with all the sports and gaming and entertainment that Las Vegas is world famous for and expanding more of, essentially the problem with the vacation traveler is that there are flaws. There are flaws where in the system, an 18-year-old kid can fake his identity, set up a fake profile. He or she can go to a gas station and get a green dot debit card, put some money on it, rent a rental, and throw a wild party and shoot up a neighborhood. And we have heard this story time and time again in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's not made up.
No, it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking for the neighbors. It's nerve-wracking for city planners. It's nerve-wracking for the county. So, the tourist industry has to have guardrails. And that's why regulations are being passed all over this country. But as our go-to market strategy, as you alluded to, these regulations are usually typically defined by stays less than 30 days. Stays that are longer, more than 30 days, they don't have to comply with these regulations because vacation traveler profiles are not traveling for that long. It's usually business related that's traveling for that much longer, especially in fields of like medical travel, structural engineers, architects. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Even here for Las Vegas, corporate relocation takes more than 30 days to complete. So again, those customer profiles are not traveling to party. They're not traveling to have this great grand, event. They really want to do work and improve our communities, build our hospitals, repair our roads and bridges, build new schools, improve water infrastructure. And with the Infrastructure Investment Act in full effect right now, $1.4 trillion, and the CHIPS Act in effect, millions of workers will be traveling at a high clip for the next 10 years. They call it the infrastructure decade. And that's where, as community members and people who hold real estate, we can give back to these blue collar workers and say, we want you to rest your heads and rejuvenate your bodies in our rental properties. And that's something that feels good. It has impact on society. And I'm very excited to be the leader of Workforce Rentals.
Your computer stopped the recording. Okay. Well, it looks like my computer stopped my recording, but we are still going out live on YouTube, and that's good enough for me. So we're just going to press on. To anybody who's watching, if you're thinking about starting a business or you're an entrepreneur right now, please pay attention to what Yeves is saying. Follow what Yeves is doing. This is the exact right way to be successful with your venture. So we talked about how you got here, what you did to tackle this problem, how you're doing this in such a different way. But there's been a bit of a journey to where you are today. And part of that journey was going through the Tulsa Techstars Accelerator. So how was that experience? What did you take away from it? Why did you go with Techstars versus any other accelerator? Tell us all about that experience.
Absolutely. Accelerators are all over this country. There's so many to choose from, and they have really great networks and things to offer, such as early stage capital to really, get your ideas off the ground. But I got to tell you, Techstars is different. It's very different. It's outside of the box. I like to consider it as an outlier program. It was founded in Boulder, Colorado, which is not a tech epicenter by any means. It's not from Silicon Valley. It's not MIT and Boston or New York or Miami. But David Cohen and who I've gotten to know really well, and all the founders out of Boulder really did a phenomenal grassroots job. And I'm a grassroots guy. And what I've learned about grassroots is that you get to build your network from the ground up, and you really get to enroll people into more of a movement. And I consider Techstars a movement. So we did apply for a local accelerator, and we were, denied, even though we had traction, even though we had our first customers, and we had, really, we had communicated our vision very well to where we thought we could get accepted. A friend of mine told me to apply for Techstars, and I followed through with that. And I was chosen by Trey Baker, the managing director in Techstars Tulsa. And it was the best decision I have ever made in my life because, one, it took us out of our market and put us into a new market. And when you go to a new market, you're not just at this, class and going to class every day. You're getting to meet the community. You get to tell them about your product, and you get to test your messaging. And Oklahoma really responded really well. One, because of all the energy infrastructure in Oklahoma, and how many workers are traveling throughout Oklahoma. So again, we were embraced by the former Commerce Secretary of Oklahoma. His name is Sean Copeland. He is the CEO of Regent Bank, and he became a believer and partner in Workbnb, and he's a mentor of mine now. So these are these huge benefits that just came out and really started to accelerate us faster than any check would have ever given us.
That's great. It sounds like it was such a payoff for you to go to a different city to be part of an accelerator outside of the regular community. And I know as an outside observer, it seems a little unpredictable about how accelerators work and who gets in and that kind of thing. And if you're watching, if you've got any questions for Yeves, please put them in the chat. We'd love to hear what you want to ask him, and we'll get those questions out there. But the question I have is, you had a frustrating experience locally, but found a place somewhere else. Do you have any advice for founders who are applying to accelerator programs right now or thinking about applying to an accelerator?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of questions about, is it worth it? And I look at it this way. If and this is very typical, like, leadership, right? Talk, okay? If you have a scarcity mindset, you are always going to be scared about costs and things that they will keep you from your opportunities, okay? Opportunity costs really have to be, factored in when you want to go to an accelerator program. So again, I am a leader of this business. I'm a leader of this movement, and it is my responsibility, my fiduciary responsibility, to keep the momentum moving forward. So I really analyzed the brand, the Techstars brand, the network, all of the opportunities, my MD, and it was all an astounding yes, because it was more opportunities that were going to lead to more opportunities and create the momentum that we would have otherwise suffered if we were just worried about a certain percentage of our company. And that's what I tell all founders. Now, if you are looking to apply for an accelerator, focus more on your story, okay? And tell the stories of your customers. Take you out of it. Too many founders are in this this situation where they talk about, this is how I got started, or this is what it would mean to me if I got accepted. Take that out. Focus on your customer. Tell the story of your customer. Tell their pain. Tell an example. This is Jacob. This is Alexis. They have these problems, and it's not unique to them. And tell it in the context of how big the problem is and how you are the person to solve that problem. And that is what works, because in the accelerators business mindset, they are trying to align their resources and network to help you solve those problems. Okay. You, the founder, are just there to take the ride.
Yeah, I think you said that beautifully. I've noticed over the years, as part of the community here and looking at pitches and pitch decks and that kind of thing, what is becoming more prominent is funders and investors are looking at impact, not just the idea anymore, but the impact the idea is going to have. And I think you encapsulated that really well. You want to take a question from the online viewers?
Hey, let's do it. Hey,
all right. Got to put my glasses on because my eyes are terrible. All right. So this is from, I hope I'm saying this right, Dash Staples. How do you stay strong as a tech founder? What makes you not quit?
The abundance mindset. I have an abundance mindset. It was something that I learned years ago, and I've always held on to it. And even though you can have a hard ride, if you have an abundance mindset, You will do everything you can to stay positive in all situations, because you know you're going to get knocked down. You know challenges are going to come, but you know that there is something for you around the corner. You just can't see it, but you know it and you believe it. And if you believe at the highest level that you can, you will make it through almost anything. And that is really what has kept us going through this entire process. Yeah, we take hits. Yeah, we take punches in the stomach. Sometimes, I constantly have to take these deep breaths and look at, my notes on the wall or my vision boards to help me, because again, I know what I'm working for and I know who I'm serving. And, serving people really helps you get out of bed every day because you're doing it with purpose. If you have you know this, Jason, when you're in your purpose, you are on fire.
Oh, I know, and I think there's a second part of this that from talking to you, I know you believe in, and it actually fits really great in coincidentally with my next question, because I know how much you're a believer in how meaningful relationships lead to success.
Yes.
So tell us about some of those relationships, especially your mentors, and how that helps you keep going as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. This journey is not always about wins. It's not always about the wins. It's not always about the sun is shining, the weather is great, the family's help. No, sometimes it's about the challenges and the journey that you go through and the people that support you in that journey. And I have a lot of mentors. Some people only have like one or two. Trey Baker is my mentor from Techstars, my MD. Peter Mullen is my ongoing mentor. I talk to Peter sometimes 2-3 times a week, where I'm just, not just venting about something, but I'm also strategizing with him. Sean Copeland, Kelly Rorick, Scott Jennings, Carrington Carter. These are all folks that are in my circle that I can confess to and I can open up to, and I can say, you know what, I'm challenged with this. What do you think? Okay. And I weigh these things out, but I also follow with my intuition. And my intuition tells me to contact these mentors and stay really close with these folks, because these relationships are more than just good advice. And I will say this to any founder: if you are blessed enough to meet somebody who has real knowledge and experience that you do not have, you need to make more deposits in those relationships than withdrawals. So ask them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Is there something that I can pray for you for? Anything. Make a deposit. Stay in this giving. That's one thing also Techstars taught us, to give first, and really build it, because you want to sustain a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, beautifully said, because part of what I think is so important about a mentor-protege relationship is, like you said, making the deposits. It is a relationship. It's not a one-way transfer of knowledge. It's not just advice. It's a relationship you have with someone else, whether you are the mentor or you are the protege. And that has to be a beneficial relationship to everyone involved. And you listed some great mentors there. It's wonderful to hear people talking about putting deposits into the relationship and building a real relationship, not just looking for advice or looking for guidance or looking for something from a mentor. And what I always encourage people to do, because we're always looking for mentors, we're all looking for mentors, is also be a mentor to someone else. That's another way you can kind of put deposits into the universe and put deposits into those relationships. So you are done with your alpha testing. You have over 1,600 companies on your beta wait list. We've talked a little bit about the impact you've had to date on the world, but tell us a little bit about the alpha testing, what that was like, what's coming up with the beta, and what's the impact you want to have in the next 12 to 18 months?
All right. Yeah. So we like to refer to this in tech as the 0 to 1 phase, where it's like you you really are figuring it out, right? And a lot of it has not to do so much with the technology. Sometimes it has to do just with the wording. How do you phrase things? Because in these relationships with your clients, there's like a methodology to adoption, okay? And in this early stage, you have what are called early adopters. And I'm talking in the context of the bell curve of what they call the adoption curve. And those first early alpha people, they have it in their own nature to be early people. I don't know if you know them, who are like, I bought this TV. I'm the first one to have this new thing, right? And you're like the later stage person where you're like, well, I'm going to wait till the price comes down, right? Or something
Yeah,
like
these
that.
these are the
Right?
people who bought Laserdisc players in the 80s and still use them today.
Right. But again, it's something in their nature that makes them early type folks. They
Yeah.
love that. They like learning about music before anybody else, or technology before anybody else. But there's only a small number of those folks. Okay. So the messaging that you use for them is not the messaging that you're going to use for your later stage folks. They have different motivations. And in the world of B2B, B2B, the methodology is, what are the next steps? What is the business win? What is the technical win? And what's the contract win? And once you can figure out that messaging, you can get them to sign up for your beta wait list. And that is something that a lot of tech founders really struggle with. Now, again, I'm blessed because I went through marketing and advertising and all that kind of training to understand these methodologies, to see this work on a larger scale. So I took this into our startup and I said, we're not just launching a tech product, we're also launching a brand with a brand promise. Because when you can have a brand promise, those answers come very quickly. And it's all under this brand icon, Workbnb. When people see this symbol, they know that there's consistency in these areas. So, but again, the alpha test was a little complicated because we're talking about a two-sided marketplace. You have property owners that have their own messages, and then you have companies with their own messages. And we had to test it in multiple markets. So back in 2021, we were in Reno. We started alpha testing with Ames Construction, which is one of the largest industrial general contractors in the United States. And they operate in 27 states. They're expanding in 5 more. But we had to understand, well, what are these are these problems consistent in other markets? So we went to Orlando in early 2022. Then we started testing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we also started testing in Texas. We also started testing a little bit up north in the northern states. So those early alpha tests, what they taught us was repeatability. And what also why this is important is because we had to make sure that the repeatability also matched up with our vision. Because when you can articulate a vision and the repeatability says, yes, you can build it brick by brick to that vision, you can then encourage other people to say, you know what? I see the vision too. I know it. I see it. I believe it. I'm going to be a part of it. And when you can activate folks to do that, they will start to do something that is the most difficult thing in all of technology. That is word of mouth, spreading the word, telling everybody they know. Workbnb is coming. I want to be a part of this. And then it grows into a movement and it becomes bigger than you at that point. And that's what we did with the alpha test. We we actually spread a movement across the country, and that had a remarkable set of outcomes, um, which also led us back to Nevada to apply for the NFL's supplier program, and we became suppliers, proud suppliers to the NFL, and that was just a huge outcome for us.
That is huge, and I do want to get into that. What was it you provided for NFL? How did that go? How did that? I'm so curious about your alpha. Was that like an MVP of your tech stack, minimum viable prototype for folks who may not be part of the tech community?
Right.
How's that different from your beta? But how did it go with the NFL and especially Super Bowl week?
Yeah, so working with the lawyers of the NFL was really eye-opening.
I bet.
But also, you got to understand that the NFL is doing its part to have a positive impact on all of the communities that the NFL works with. So this Business Connect program was designed for it was a diversity supplier program that covered military-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, to help them get contracts from every type of service. So from catering to temp services, you name it, security, to get people, the opportunity to participate and be part of the overall impact. And temporary housing was one of those services that they really needed, because the NFL brings vendors and sponsors that come and put on huge events. They have film crews, event production crews. These are blue collar workers. And again, temporary housing was a need. We applied for that niche because we understand it so well. And now, going to your question, testing. Did you get to test your tech stack? Yes and no. The honest answer is yes and no, because what the NFL wanted from us was more of a white glove service. They find that tech companies and you know this, they have like chat bots and all this impersonal type thing, and they said, no, we really want 24-hour customer service where you can talk to an individual. We want something that's a little bit more above. But we were the first tech company to be accepted into the program. So that was a really big pleasure and distinction that we earned. And we had to rise above to that occasion. But essentially, what it teaches us always is repeatability, that these crews come for these times and they're doing X work, and they need, comfortable accommodations. And there are properties that have either permits in the right area, or some that if they don't have a permit, they have to do more than 30 days. But again, we were able to prove all of that out. And then moving forward, as we march our way to the MVP, that's where we get to use this logo, proud supplier to the NFL. And it's one of those things that you had to have earned it to use it. But from a branding perspective, a brand architecture perspective, it would cost so many tech companies millions to get access to those three letters, the NFL.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is a lot of tech founders forget or overlook that you can live up to your brand promise. You can prove out your concept without the tech stack, which sounds like what you've done at Workbnb. Is you lived up to your brand promise. You proved out that you can do the service, you can have the impact you want to have without the tech stack. Which means once you get the tech figured out, once you turn it into code, now the sky's the limit, because you can scale it once it's turned into code. So
yeah, and just for clarity, our tech team led by Valentine and his brother Frank, who we also met at TechStars. They came on as our technical co-founders. They really put us, the visionaries, in our place to really understand code logic and develop the code for a prototype that could be used for the Super Bowl. But at the same time, it didn't have all the bells and whistles that I personally wanted as leader, but I had to step back into my place and say, this is about a marathon. This is not about a sprint. You have to, show repeatability. You have to show that a prototype, and they used these very kind words for us when they joined our team last summer. They said, we're going to build you a Toyota. I know you want a Ferrari, but the Toyota is going to work. Okay.
And the Toyota will still be running in a few years too.
Right. So, but in a sense, we got to use the Toyota. We got to expose our clients to the Toyota. But again, we did the groundwork, which is the movement part. We convinced vacation property owners to get out of that niche into our niche, which was a mindset thing. And we had to coin that and really grease the runway, the skids, to really glide so that when the demand came to them, they understood their ideal customer profile. So that's a non-tech thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, congratulations on your success, getting folks to shift their mindset from vacation rental to B2B, business rental I think that's a bigger success than anything you and I have talked about when we've talked about this in the past. Congratulations on your success with the NFL. And also, speaking of success, you were just nominated for a big award. I think it was App of the Year.
Yes. So there's this really great organization. It's a global organization. It's also it's here in the U.S. out of New York, as well as out of the U.K. But it's called the Black Tech Excellence Awards, and it's really just recognizing so many Black tech leaders that are up and coming in this convergence of tech and intellect, where it's like we're becoming, these fast growing tech founders, and we're solving problems in a very big scalable way. But there are a lot of tech leaders that encourage people to apply or to nominate folks, and we got nominated for App of the Year, and that distinction went to 5. Now we didn't win, but it was such a great, honor to be nominated because of our impact. And again, that's where this really lies, is that if you build a product that really solves a problem, people are going to do the word of mouth thing. They're going to nominate, and which is also something that you can leverage later as you go to market. Because if you think about it, side by side comparison, if there's a product that has nominations, great PR, again, great momentum, versus a product that doesn't have any of that, who's going to win in the distribution side of things? It's always going to be the one that really is impact driven.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on that. I know you didn't win, but it sounds like you were in great company being nominated.
It was great. It was phenomenal. All the apps were brilliant apps. And again, as an early stage pre-beta, that was like an eye opener for us. We were so grateful.
So fantastic. You've already mentioned some of the folks on your team. You have an amazingly talented team. I was looking at some of the LinkedIn profiles for the folks on your team. And you guys, you're working to achieve all of this impact. How did you put together this fantastic Workbnb team? What were you looking for in your team members? What was your approach to building this team?
I'm 43 and I've learned a lot about chemistry. You could have some really brilliant people. And my story is that, again, like, I wasn't in tech. So it's not like, I grew up with friends who were in tech or coders and and I went to my friends who I had, great long relationships with and said, hey, let's build this product together. But chemistry was definitely one of the things, but also vision. Finding people with visions of their own, impact, driven visions of their own. And I got to tell you, the day that I met Dajanique Staples was the day that I really understood that 20-year-olds really are the future, and they have very grand visions if you ask them questions about their visions and their goals. And, Dajanique really had very big ambitions and goals of getting into real estate and managing large properties. And I was impressed. But also, this younger generation comes in with this knowledge of only knowing applications. That's all they've ever grown up with. So, as leader, I felt that Dajanique Staples was the future, but also that she looks at things from a different lens. And unfortunately, the tech industry doesn't respect women to put them in leadership positions. And I'm very intentional when I say that, because even the top tech companies have very little or if any women on their board, which is the governance of this tech company. And that is more long tail than actually building the company. So, I knew that was a problem that I really, coming from a family with a strong matriarch who was a very, bold leader, my grandmother, Dr. Mary Lee Thomas, I saw in her what I saw in Dajanique. And I said, Dr. Mary Lee Thomas at 23 was not a doctor yet. She was not at her full potential yet, but she needed the opportunities to get there. And so does Dajanique. So Dajanique sits on the board. She's the president of the company, and she is the leader of the product development. So now you can look at her resume and say, was she qualified for that? And I say, to anybody, I will defend it in this decision because she has led to early product market fit, which a lot of men have failed at in tech. So I look at this as a moment of leadership to put leaders out front who have strengths that I don't have and different lenses that I will never have. So that was important. But then also, what was extra important was that those lenses translate into the product. And we are very proud in our marketing for our beta launch. I'm giving you an early look into the marketing that we're taking a little bite out of Apple computers. Apple computers, when you get the app or the products, it says proudly designed in California. And they love that distinction. They love that separation, that value prop that they put in front of you. For us, our application, because it's not a physical product, we're making sure that when you download the product and you get onto the product, it will clearly say this app was proudly designed by Black women. And that's something that I'm very proud of because we are outliers. Outliers do the hard things and they lead into the fire. And we really want that as a distinction for this tech company to grow and be inclusive. So now, with that said, others that have come into the team, yes, there's a lot of skill set. Technical co-founders, our CFO was part of a 9-figure exit. Our advisors, have done millions in business, right? Like, we're stacking it up because, again, we want to do something that's difficult. We have a vision of taking this company IPO. A lot of Nevada founders have never had that type of exit. They've either sold their tech companies or they have exited in other ways through M&A and stuff like that. But, we have a vision to take Workbnb to the New York Stock Exchange one day and ring the bell.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I want to talk about that. So much goodness with what you're doing with your team. We're a big believer in developing leaders from all backgrounds, but also especially helping young women really break into leadership and giving them opportunities as well. So much goodness that you're doing. I didn't know if you wanted to bring this up, if you wanted to, if your ultimate goal was to take the company public, but now that you've brought it up, I'm gonna dig into it. What do you think makes a successful exit for a startup?
So, okay, listen, I have two answers. Two ways I look at this. This is how I've assessed tech. There are the tech founders that treat their tech companies like lottery tickets. They just want to get rich, okay? And they want to get rich as fast as possible, okay? So they're willing to grind it out for 2 years and then sell the company, okay? And that's a fine exit. If that's what you want to do, you want to just grind this thing out. You want to bring in a VC and do a quick flip, an M&A. That is your choice. That is your prerogative, okay? And I don't disregard anybody that wants to do that. In our case, we come from communities that have been historically just brought down in our ability to create generational wealth, especially family members like from my family who have been victims of redlining in real estate, okay? Where they thought that investing in real estate was going to equate to something, but it didn't create the wealth that they were hoping it would create. And the negative effects that has on our communities. And I want to show founders that creating generational businesses is a different path. You're not looking for the fast exit, but you are looking to create shareholder value, okay? That's very important. And taking a company public is the type of exit that creates wild success for a different type of investor, which are typically angel investors or early stage friends and family, where they cut small checks, but they want to take the ride to that distinction of scalability. Scalability is gorgeous when you have these kind of visions, because you basically look at it as, if I can do this in my backyard, can I do this in Australia? Can I do this in Canada? Can I do this in Africa? And if the answer is yes, you need to raise capital to afford those legal costs, to afford those expansion costs, and going public helps you afford that. Now, there's a lot of people that advise against it because of the headaches and all that type of stuff. But if you are in that generational mindset, yes, you can keep your company private and grow at a small clip, but that means that your customers are suffering because you're not growing fast enough, okay? And I would rather suffer the the headaches of taking the company public, but then this is going to be the big thing, really planning my succession as CEO to executive chairman, and then having other leaders take this into a global business. And I can ride out my years as a majority shareholder and pass that equity to my great grandchildren. And that's the journey that I'm on.
That's fantastic. Sounds like you've got a really clear vision of where you want things to go. But that's going to take some money to get there, and you're in the middle of raising some funds right now. What have you learned about pitching and fundraising, about investors, and what's your advice for entrepreneurs who may be a little further behind in the journey that you are and are getting ready to go into that fundraising piece?
Right. So, I mean, there are so many books you could read, and so many great. I would say do a lot of reading. you know, you know, consume as much as you can. But here's the other thing that I've learned. I mean, if I could give my small little dent in the universe, really think about the legacy that you're trying to create and how you communicate legacy to investors, because there's a lot of people who think about their legacies more than anything. They want to have impacts in their own communities, in their own circles of the world. And relatability is part of that storytelling, because if you tell that story right, they think about their uncles and brothers and sisters that have these problems that you're talking about. And they think to themselves, if I give this little bit of money to solve these problems, this is going to be part of my legacy. And I want to say those are the things that really help you create the emotional connection to the investment. Because I got to tell you, you never know how up and down the ride is going to be. You can't predict that. You can't predict what's going to happen in the economy. You can't predict how difficult fundraising is going to be, like what we saw in the last couple of years. And especially last year, 3,000 tech companies went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you are actively raising, you need to be actively telling the best possible story that has these little emotional connections. And that's my advice. And now for the investors that choose us, they choose us because we're a worthy problem. Is it worthy of their dollars? They worked really hard to get this money. So we have done a really great job at framing the problem really well. We've done a really great job at helping people understand the importance of this. And I really want to go back to this, especially to the construction industry, okay? Because you got to think about it bigger than just heads and beds. That doesn't build a brand. What builds a brand is when you go past into other problems. So one problem I want to tell you about is this labor crunch that the construction industry is having. That there are so many workers that are retiring every year. They're at retirement age and they have all the knowledge. But these younger generations want to be TikTok dancers. They want to be famous, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to get into the trades. They don't want to get into electrical trades or construction trades. So as a construction leader, you're trying to influence these young kids to get in, and you're like, wow, like I'm paying really decent wages. I have really great benefits. But again, go back to those 7 expensive words. If you're doing the housing the same way that you've been doing for the last 30, 40 years, that's not motivating them to get out and travel for you. So leveraging technology as a way to inspire young people to say, you know what? I like this. I have a friend who's in construction, and he was FaceTiming me, and he was at a really nice rental. And I said, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of that company that treats their employees well. Improving employee morale is at the height of what these companies are trying to do to recruit new employees. And again, if you can have that umbrella effect of impact, wow, you can raise capital. And that's what we did.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone put it that way or answer the question that way, and we ask it a lot. I think there's really valuable things that nobody ever talks about in pitching and building a real relationship with investors to go forward for a long-term vision. I think that's great. You talked a little bit earlier about your initial experiences with the Vegas tech community here, but what are you excited about in our Vegas tech scene, and what's something you'd like to contribute to the tech startup scene here in Vegas?
Yeah, so I mean, my difficulties is, sometimes I get a sense of gatekeeping where it's like there's only these certain gates, and if you're not getting through the gate, you're feeling a little stifled. But I will say this: Las Vegas, from everybody I've talked to, by all accounts, feel this energy that is